So since 2012, we've been running events that have been bringing people together to talk about time and society, basically. So the title Temporal Belongings is focusing on this idea of community. So how time brings us together in certain ways, but separates us in others. And all the events that we've had since then have looked at that in different kinds of ways.
I guess it intersects with my own work and the work of some of my colleagues in this research project called Waiting Times, because we're interested in the relationship between time and care. And care, of course, is also a deeply relational concept, and a concept that has to do with the ways that we never care in isolation. We care in conditions of community and belonging.
Which is the project at the University of Oslo involving a group 15-20 people interested in the entanglements between different forms of time and different forms of life. So it's an attempt to see if we are able to think time across different disciplines, also involving geology and biology, in addition to history and social time, which is what we've been used to dealing with. We realized at the last conference that we had a lot of things in common in thinking about time, not in the abstract and not as something given, but something that is produced in social relations and exchanges, and with use of technology and language and visuals and lots of different things, and that we had an interest in sort of trying to do stuff together.
We thought it would be a nice thing to follow on from the social life of time, to start looking at how the changing materialities of the world around us and our lives, how these might be changing time for us, or creating pressures that force changes on the way that we think about time and enact time. So it is also partly linked with the conference moving online in response to a climate emergency, and the agency of carbon in that process, I suppose, of all the different kinds of manifestations that will have, and some of that will be transforming the time of academic practice. So we wanted the excuse to look at that all, and all the range of issues that come out of that in more detail.
People coming to the conference are obviously going to have very different ways into this question about how we think about time's materialization. It might be through the historical objects, for example, of timekeeping. It may be around the environmental humanities and thinking very differently about how time is materialized in relation to the environment right now. And so our interest in health care in relationality and the ways that care, for example, has been pushed right onto the sort of agenda right now in terms of both COVID this year and the urgency of renewed calls for from the Black Lives Matter movement, thinking about those two things together as a sort of framing for how we might think of also time's materialization right now.
This is an attempt not sort of to compensate for not being able to meet. It's a conference that's been planned from the beginning as a digital conference. So it's really an attempt to look at what kind of tools we have for meeting and exchanging in a digital environment.
Many people will talk about how it's the conversation in the corridor that moves something forward for them, or the chance encounter, or in fact, not even what's pleasant, but something unpleasant that might happen in the corridor that gets someone thinking and trying to work something out. So look, what are the electronic forums in which that might happen? Can one simulate, if you like, the sort of water cooler moment? Can one simulate a stroll in the garden? Can one simulate the points of friction, in fact, that happen when something really difficult happens in a conference setting where people are in conflict? And so I think I'm looking forward to seeing whether it's possible for those moments to arise. Those are, for me, the real moments where knowledge is actually pushed forward rather than the ones where we expect it to happen.
So there'll be room there for people to have ad hoc sessions, to propose things while we're actually having the event, so that anything that comes up, if it feels like we're not talking about it yet, we can people can host a session on that, or we can kind of creative processes that people want to do with people or experience with people, there'll be room for that as well. So I'm just excited to see what happens, I suppose, how people push the limits of what the conference can be with this platform that lets them do that. I think.